My name is Amanda Sutton. I am 36 years old. Last Easter Sunday, I drove to my family's holiday dinner. I arrived a little late on purpose. Before I even knocked on the door, I could hear my father's voice from outside. He was giving a toast. He said, "Thank God Amanda is not here. The night is already better." My sister laughed. The whole room clinked glasses. I was standing right there on the porch, spring wind in my hair, listening to every word. But that toast was not why I had called my lawyer 3 weeks earlier. I called my lawyer because I found out someone had taken out a $260,000 mortgage on my house, using my forged signature, without telling me a single word. If you are watching this, please subscribe and drop your location in the comments. I love knowing where you are watching from. Now, let me take you back to the moment I first knew something was very wrong. I grew up in Millbrook, Ohio, a quiet town, the kind where everyone goes to the same grocery store and news travels fast. My parents, Frank and Carol Sutton, worked their whole lives. My father ran a small painting business. My mother worked part-time at a dental office. They were not rich. They were not bad people. They were just people who had 2 daughters and treated them very differently. My older sister, Nicole, was always the favorite. She was louder, funnier, and always the center of every family gathering. My parents called her their free spirit. They called me the responsible one. Nicole opened a small clothing boutique 4 years ago with her husband, Kevin. She asked me for $40,000 to get it started. I gave it to her. No written agreement, no payment plan. She never paid back a single dollar. Over 8 years, I gave this family more than $120,000. $15,000 for my father when his business had a bad year and he could not pay his taxes. $25,000 for a new furnace and roof repairs on my parents' house after a bad winter storm. Another $18,000 when Nicole's boutique was losing money and she said she would close without help. Every time I asked about getting the money back, my mother would get quiet and say, "Amanda, we are family. We are not a bank." My father would talk about loyalty. Nicole would roll her eyes and call me uptight. I kept giving because I loved them, because I thought that was what family meant. I own 2 properties. The house I live in, which I bought at 29 after years of saving, and a second house, a rental property, where my parents and Nicole's family had been living for 2 years, completely free of charge. No rent, no lease, nothing. I never asked them for rent. I just asked them not to steal from me. They did not listen. It started in September. A Wednesday afternoon. I checked my mailbox after work the way I always do, but there was nothing from my mortgage company. No monthly statement, no letter from the county. I thought nothing of it at first. Mail gets lost sometimes. But 2 more weeks passed. Still nothing from the bank. No letters at all about either of my properties. I called the post office. The woman on the phone went quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Ma'am, there is a mail forwarding order on your address. All your mail is being sent somewhere else." She read me the address. It was my parents' house. I sat in my car outside the post office. I did not move for 10 minutes. I just stared at the dashboard. Then I opened my phone and checked my credit report. There it was, a new mortgage, $260,000, opened 2 months earlier, listed against my home, the house I owned completely with no other loans on it. The lender was a bank I had never contacted. The loan type was a cash-out refinance, and my name was on every single page of the application. I zoomed in on the signature. It was not mine. The letters looked close, but I have signed my name thousands of times on tax forms and work documents. I know every curve of my own handwriting. This was not it. Someone had forged my signature and taken out a loan on my house. Someone had also redirected my mail so I would not find out. I called a real estate attorney named Gary Marsh the very next morning. I found him through the state bar directory. I paid his fee in full up front. Gary is not a person who wastes words. He asked me 3 questions. Did I give anyone permission to act on my behalf? No. Did I ever sign a power of attorney? No. Did I know the notary listed on the documents? I looked at the name. Helen Briggs. That is my mother's friend. They go to the same church and have lunch together every other week. Gary exhaled slowly. Then he said, I am going to need those mortgage documents. Within 10 days, he had everything. He laid the papers on his desk and put my real signature from a recent tax filing right beside the forged one. He said, the pressure and the letter spacing are completely different. A handwriting expert would confirm this in 1 day. This is not your signature. He also asked where I was on the day the loan was supposedly signed. I checked my calendar. I was in Cincinnati at a work conference. My company had my registration records and my hotel receipt. Gary closed the folder and said, this is not just fraud. This is a felony. Then he traced where the money went. $260,000 had been sent to an account called the Sutton Family Trust. I had never created any trust. The account was opened using my social security number and a post office box at my parents' address. From that account, the money was split 3 ways. $160,000 went to Nicole's boutique. $60,000 went to my father's personal account. $40,000 went to my mother. I read each line one by one. Each name was someone I had known my whole life. Each dollar was a choice they had made while I was 40 miles away working to earn the money they were spending. Gary told me who had organized it. Nicole. She had filed the paperwork. She had arranged the notary. She had submitted the mail forwarding request so I would not see the bank statements. My older sister had not just taken money. She had built the whole operation. She had brought in our parents. She had used their friend to fake my signature. And she had done it all to save a boutique that was already failing. 3 weeks after I found all of this out, my mother called me. Her voice was warm and cheerful. She said the whole family was doing Easter dinner at the rental house, my house. She invited me like she was doing me a favor. I told her I would think about it. Before I went, I made sure everything was ready. Gary had filed for an emergency court order to freeze the mortgage so the bank could not start taking my home. He had also prepared an eviction notice for the rental property. The court approved the enforcement order. The date the deputies could serve it was Easter Sunday. I did not pick that date. The court did. It was the first available slot on the judge's calendar. But I will be honest, I did not ask them to change it either. I drove to the house that evening with a folder of documents on the passenger seat. I parked 3 houses down. I walked up the path slowly. Through the door, I heard my father's voice rise above the noise of the party. He said, "Thank God Amanda's not here. The night is already better." My sister laughed. The whole room clinked their glasses. My mother's voice came next. She said, "She will come crawling back. She always does." I stood on that porch and listened to my entire family agree, one voice at a time, that I was the problem, the woman who had paid their bills, funded their business, and let them live in my house for free. I was the joke they told at the Easter table. I stepped back from the door. I walked to my car. I called Gary. He answered on the first ring. I said, "I am here. Everyone is inside." He said, "I will call the deputy now. 15 minutes. I sat in the cold car and waited. 8 minutes later, I saw the headlights. 2 sheriff's cars came slowly down the street. No sirens, just the quiet sound of engines and the sweep of lights across the parked cars. The deputies knocked on the door. 3 firm knocks. The music inside stopped. Nicole's voice came sharp through the door. "What is going on?" The door opened. Warm light poured out. The deputy's voice was calm and clear. "Good evening. We are here to serve an emergency enforcement order related to documented fraud involving this property. The order requires all named occupants to vacate by midnight tonight." I got out of my car. I walked up the path and stepped through the open door. 20 people were in that room, forks frozen, glasses held still, everyone staring. I set my folder on the Easter dinner table, right between the ham and the bread basket. I opened it and spread the documents out slowly. The mortgage application with the forged signature, the wire transfer records, every name, every dollar. My uncle picked up one of the pages and read it. The room was completely silent. I said in a calm voice, $260,000 was taken from a loan on my house using a forged signature. The money went to Nicole's boutique, to Dad's account, and to Mom's account. Every dollar is documented, right here. My father stared at the table. My mother covered her mouth with both hands. Nicole tried to speak. She looked around the room for support. She found none. Her husband was already putting on his coat. My uncle set down the paper and looked at my father. He said, "Frank, is this true?" My father said nothing. That silence told everyone everything. I left the folder on the table. I turned and walked out the front door without looking back. The criminal case moved quickly. The grand jury reviewed the documents and returned indictments. Nicole was charged with 2 felony counts, forgery and mortgage fraud. She accepted a plea deal, 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, and full repayment of the money she had taken. The boutique closed the week before her sentencing. My father was charged with 1 count of criminal conspiracy. He received a suspended sentence, community service, and a repayment order. At 64 years old, with a felony on his record, his working life was effectively finished. My mother received probation and a repayment order for her portion. The accessory charge will follow her name for the rest of her life in this town. Helen Briggs, my mother's friend who faked the notary certification, had her license permanently revoked, and faced separate criminal charges. The fraudulent mortgage was voided by the court. The lien was removed from my property. My house was mine again. My name was mine again. I rented the second house to a young couple, teachers. They signed a proper lease, paid a deposit, and moved in on a Tuesday. They planted flowers along the front path where my mother's old rose bushes used to be.
I did not go to the sentencing hearings. I did not need to see their faces when the judge read the terms. The documents had already said everything that needed to be said. My name is Amanda Sutton. I have my house, my name, and my peace. I do not hate my family. Hatred takes too much energy, and I have spent enough of my energy on people who never gave it back. What I understand now is this: being called the responsible one is not always a compliment. Sometimes it is just a way of saying, we are going to keep taking from you, and we need you to stay quiet about it. I stayed quiet for 8 years. I wrote the checks. I absorbed the insults. I told myself that one more loan, one more favor, one more year of silence would finally be enough. It was never going to be enough. The people who take from you without gratitude will not stop on their own. They stop when you stop. I have 3 rules now. I wrote them down and keep them where only I can see them. First, I do not lend money to family. If I choose to give something, it is a gift. If I cannot afford to give it away completely, I do not write the check. Second, my rental property has a lease and a payment schedule. Family and tenants are 2 different things. Third, I do not respond to guilt as a negotiation tool. If someone calls me selfish for having boundaries, that is confirmation the boundary is necessary. My uncle and I still talk. We meet for dinner sometimes, at a quiet place halfway between our towns. We do not talk about the case. We talk about normal things. That is what family looks like to me now. An honest conversation where nobody owes anybody anything except the truth. Last week, I drove past the rental house. The young couple had hung a small wind chime on the porch. A child's bicycle was leaning against the fence. The front garden looked bright and cared for. I slowed down but did not stop. The house was warm and full of life. I drove home, pulled into my driveway, checked my mailbox. Electric bill, a postcard from my uncle, a furniture catalog I did not order. All of it addressed to me. All of it delivered to my house. Nobody had forwarded it. Nobody was reading my bank statements at a kitchen table across town. I carried the mail inside and hung my keys on the hook by the door. The house was quiet. The afternoon light came through the kitchen window and made a warm square on the floor. My name is Amanda Sutton. This is my house. And for the first time in a very long time, that is enough. That is my story. If it made you feel something, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done? I read every single one. I will see you in the next one.